Noah, welcome to the show. You're wrapping us up. You are live with V and Dave. How can we help you today?
Hey, how are you guys? I'm a little starstruck, so I'll try to get to the point. If it's no big deal, could I make a quick shout out to my wife?
Absolutely, go for it.
Hey, Yasmin, you know who I am, and I just want the whole world to know that I love you, and I appreciate everything you've done for me.
That's sweet.
That's as happy as I'll get.
A pre-Valentine's greeting. That's great.
That's adorable. I love it. All right, Noah, what can we help you with today?
Thank you. Yes, actually, real quick, it was actually Noel. Noah's my brother-in-law. Anyway, my whole point was that I've had this train of thought, and I never really bought into Christianity. I think I used to be spiritual or religious. I was really young when I decided to put all that away.
Mm-hmm.
But along that journey, Christianity just kind of became less and less likely in my head the more informed I became.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached this point where I was thinking, if there was ever a straw that broke the camel's back, Genesis should have been it. My line of thinking was that if Genesis isn't a literal account and that didn't actually happen, then there's really, in my opinion anyway, there's no foundation for the rest of Christianity's mythos. And from where I sit, that should really be the last nail in the coffin. And obviously it's not for most people. So I was just wondering what you and Dave thought about that. Should Genesis kind of like be the door closer? Because I don't see the point in the rest of it if Genesis isn't real.
Yeah, I think that's the reason you see people like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind going at it so hard, is because they understand that. They understand that if Genesis is not accurate, if it's not factual, if that's not what actually happened, then the entire rest of their mythology does fall apart. I know that it wasn't necessarily the biggest nail in the coffin for me, but it certainly was one of them. And I know many atheists who deconverted after realizing that they had been lied to about evolution, about creation, about the Big Bang, all of that. So I do think that for a lot of people, it actually is that nail in the coffin. The people who are able to get around that have this very tricky way of getting themselves into this space where they're okay accepting metaphor, right? And so if you say, oh, well, Genesis is metaphorical or holds deeper meaning or tells us truths that don't actually, have a scientific counterpart, kind of like our first caller was saying, oh, it's just a method of understanding the world, then it's very easy to take that and apply that to, Jesus saying, I am, the second Adam and Adam and Eve caused the first sin, and Jesus coming to save that. Of course, if there's no actual Adam and Eve, that makes it more complicated. But if Adam and Eve is a metaphor for just people being bad in general, then you've effectively skirted that. So it really does depend on how metaphorical you're comfortable getting as a theist, and how much cognitive dissonance you're comfortable entertaining up there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Go ahead, Joe.
No,
go ahead, Dave.
I was thinking along the same lines that the answers in Genesis people, they cling to that. The young earth creationists cling to that, because if you take Adam and Eve out of the equation, if you take the Garden of Eden out of the equation, if you take original sin out of the equation, then you've got problems with the whole rest of the story. You've got problems with the whole salvation message altogether. I've been doing some work on a presentation I'm going to do next month for Recovering from Religion, their chat room, about sin. They asked me to do a thing on sin, and I'm calling it the fallacy of sin, because as a secular person, I don't use that word. That's a religious word.
Mm-hmm.
It's a religious construct. It's a religious construct. Do people do wrong things? Yeah. Is there good and bad? Are there things that we wish we hadn't done? Yeah, but it's not a sin, because sin brings a deity into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
When it's just me and you talking, and I raise my voice and I yell when I shouldn't have, I say to you, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have acted that way. I'll do better next time, I hope. But I didn't sin. That's a God thing. And I didn't offend some God with me yelling or saying fuck. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so And so when we take Adam and Eve out of the equation and we look at humanity as a whole and individuals living lives doing the best we can, well, if there's no original sin, if we can't tell a kid, if we can't tell children that you're born as a sinner and you've got to ask Jesus in your heart to be born again and to be saved, if we take all of that away, we can't sell the gospel message to them. We can't sell the gospel message to anyone because there's no problem that has to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sin that has to be forgiven. So even if you take Adam and Eve and make it metaphorical, and you take the Garden of Eden and make it metaphorical, you've done away with original sin. You've done away with the fall of man, and mankind is not then born guilty. And then you don't need a savior for shit. And so what did Jesus do? He just came and got himself in trouble with the Romans and got himself killed. So the whole thing falls apart. And so, yeah, the problem should have stopped with Genesis. If you deconstruct Genesis, you deconstruct the whole story.
Yeah, see, I don't even think taking Genesis metaphorically saves Christianity.
No, it doesn't.
Because
it doesn't solve the problem.
Then God only metaphorically created the universe, and he only metaphorically created man in his own image, and we only metaphorically somehow, contrary to his perfect knowledge and power, managed to, usurp his divine plan, and I just don't even see how taking it metaphorically saves it in any way.
It doesn't solve anything.
Like it's dead in the water.
Yeah, it's a big.
God is metaphorically there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if we want to talk about God in the metaphorical sense, okay, but let's not confuse that with actually existing.
Yeah.
Noel, thank you so much for calling in. We are going to be wrapping up, but you're absolutely right. If Genesis is not a factor, that is a problem.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys for taking my call, and good luck and stay healthy.
Thanks, Noel.
Absolutely. You too.